So the purpose of this is a look back. I'm soon to be releasing my 10th album, hopefully 2024 at the end of the year. I'm 80% done, and it's called the Pilgrims Path, and it's sort of a concept album where every track was loosely inspired by different places I went on a break back up north to my dad's in Northamptonshire, and I stopped at various places on the way, such as Worcester, the Malverns. On the way back down, I stopped in the Cotswolds in Wiltshire. I visited places like Stanton Drew and the Royal Wright Stones and places like that. And so I was interested in my own creative past and how to make sense of it. And I've been listening to some of the music I've made over the years. And I wanted to have a recap on it, and I just might enjoy a bit of perspective on it. So it's a rough and ready look, brief look, almost. So the giant Shadow E.P, even though the focus of this is the album, to briefly talk about how everything comes together for me creatively and what happened in my life at the time. So in September 2003, I finished my first year of university and I dropped out in Chichester, a small, interesting little city with a beautiful cathedral, and I had some great times in Chichester, and I had some great creative times up to then in several different bands. And I wanted to do my own music without worrying about. I love playing together different musicians, but I wanted to strike out on my own and try different ideas I wouldn't normally try, and not be constrained by a band setting. The bands are great, but I've also felt kind of like that. And it was a great time then because music was vibrant, and it is now, but in a different kind of way. I felt at the time, maybe it's because I was younger, there's camaraderie between bands, and I've played live music a lot with bands and a lot of original music around, which where I live at the moment, you get mostly cover acts, so there's nothing wrong with that. But as I understand, I've done things like that to make money and just to share with people music and have the fun experience of doing it. So anyway, I moved down here. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't drive. I had no money. Didn't have a girlfriend or no job. And my parents, I moved here to run a shop in the beautiful fishing town of Loo in 2003. Shortly after that, I got quite terrible news of something tragic that happened to a friend, an ex-girlfriend who sadly died. So I was channeling my emotions and my experiences into writing music, and out of that I was trying to work things out in my own head, and I released, my friends actually created a MySpace account, and I released a few things on there, and they come about from about 4 different solo acoustic EPs. I moved down with basically just an old keyboard, electric guitar and acoustic guitar, and my violin. But I had no way to lay music at the time, so I would just recorded live demos. One was Tiny Metal Animals, one was Dancer in the Snow, and a few others like that. Well, a few of those tracks at the time survived the distance, such as Daisy Dresses, which was later released on my 7th album, Star Waltz. And so I finally got Cakewalk. It was a version of Cakewalk at the time, and I was able to layer music properly. So the result of that was 3 projects. The Lucy and the Devil album, which was going to be my first album, which never materialized. For some reason, I did release it early on at the time, but I wasn't really happy with it, it was quite lo-fi, and I didn't have great equipment. And the concept of an immortal being falling in love with a mortal. And then I had another concept idea, and it's based on it's called Symphony of Sculpture, which was going to be my second album, which was based on Pygmalion, the sculptor who crafts his first true love out of stone called Galatea and falls in love with the sculpture. But I created something called Giant Shadow E.P, and I ran with that, and it was still in the days of MySpace, so it didn't do too bad. And I actually toured it, and I did a fair few gigs, and I played tracks like Something Strange from Losing the Devil, and it's where tracks like Birth of Vision come from, and Honey Apples come from Losing the Devil. And the tracks from Giant Shadow E.P, Giant Shadow, Can I Please Betray You, Daisy Covered Dresses was on it, Broken Toy, a track called Broken Toy, and an instrumental called Strawberry Flavoured Ice Cream Monolith. And so I was playing bass for my friend in his band, and he let me open up for him. It was an awesome experience for me, one I'll always be grateful for. And it hardened and toughened up these songs. It got me into playing these songs regularly and having a regular set that I could draw upon. And I was just playing with a backing track of a drum, just literally the drum machine beats, because I'd got a few drum machines then, one that was like a guitar pedal. And then I moved out of Lou. I come back from tour, and in the meantime, my folks had moved and I had nowhere else to go again, so I moved with them. And I ended up in a little village called Dog Walls, and I moved into the garage. My stepdad put a wall in the a wall in the back, and I moved in the garage, and I loved it because it was pretty much soundproof. So I started to record all the time, and I started to get back into playing the violin, which I'd had since I was 18, which was a squeaky horrible mess, and for the first time I could get a decent noise out of it. And I wrote tracks like, the first thing I wrote was a track called White Chocolate Mice, and it was actually based on a detuned, out of tune violin. And then I basically ran with that idea, and the whole concept was looking at life through a lens, an existential lens of how does society and the way we live our lives, all the things that structure our societal human lives, how does it look from a outsider's point of view? And I had this weird idea of a super intelligent dormouse that had escaped from a lab and had some kind of supernatural and psychical power, and his journey was my first proper album, The Mouse Escapes. And I did also play a lot of these tracks live. White Chocolate Mice, I played become a one that I could play live, just bash out, and I still play it now. I love playing that song. A lot of it is based on the samples, because I was basically trying to rescue all my old weird musical ideas I had on a dictaphone, cassette dictaphone, and I was putting them all in, digitizing all of that. And some of those I used to sample as to create a backing track or a drum beat, and it's full of weird samples from when I was a lot younger. And samples of my youngest brother at the time. His voice is in Catch the Mouse. And some of it was influenced by my trips up to Scotland. And that became my first album. And I played it live with my brother. My brother played guitar for it live and sung harmonies live. And we did some pretty far out shows with the weird backing tracks. We played in the Voodoo Lounge, and I had a semi-regular spot The Voodoo Lounge is sadly now shut down. I played in the Hub, a place called the Hub, and it was incorporated with giant shadow tracks and stuff like that. And Honey, the track Honey, and I played a place called the Phoenix, which burnt down and reopened, and I had a semi-regular slot at the Phoenix where I just play wherever I want, and I knew the sound engineer, and he was the promoter, and he's a pretty cool guy. And he'd bring me up and he'd say, oh, by the way, we're shut tonight, but you can still come down and play if you want and hang out. So it's a pretty far out. Like I was on the bill there one night with a jazz band, a girl band, like a girl pop band with a backing track, and me. And they used to have a really weird mix in there of older guys and students, because it was really cheap to get pissed there. Then I went for a really purple patch of, I stopped writing for a while, and I got into trying to improve what I was going to do with my life, and I wanted to get my driving done, so I concentrated on that. I was basically studying philosophy in my own free time. I was still looking for answers to my life around me and trying to make sense of the world, spiritually and philosophically. And that came out in a massive book of songs. Well, massive. It had 40 songs in it, and it's called the Star Map book. And I wrote a lot of it when I was on holiday in Hale, in a little bungalow on the beach overlooking the sands. And they're called Cornish, and they're little bungalows called Towans. And I wrote most of the Star Map book in it. And I come up first with the track Let Them Eat Cake, which was that weird backwards drum beat, bouncy sort of riff with a detuned guitar down to low C. And that became the foundation of how I was going to record it. And I was using a freeware program, I can't remember what it's called. But it was really good, but I didn't have a decent mic and I couldn't afford one. So I went up to my friend's house in Northampton, and he very kindly let me record all the vocals in his shower. And that turned out all right, because I didn't bring up for some reason in my infinite wisdom, I stupidly did not bring up the programs on my laptop to mix them. I brought up mixed instrumental versions of the tracks, which meant everything had to be laid on top without adjusting, which is something you famously don't do if you want to get a good clear vocal mix. But somehow he did a really great job and it sounded really cool. I then went down the rabbit hole with several other things which never ever materialized. One of them, so instead of stopping with one songbook, so I had a song technique at the time, which was write down a load of prospective song titles on a piece of A4, and write them in a header at the top of a piece of A4 in a book, and then in a stream of consciousness write down a stream of prose, and then edit the prose into lyrics, and work. I mean, loads of the songs were more conscious than that, or specific subjects. And that was basically what the workflow was, trying to work with my unconscious and subconscious. And then I sit with the words of the guitar, and then detune the guitar, start playing around, and then feel my way around the words and melody. And I got the Closed Lids of Dreaming Eyes, which later became Dream Cage, out of that. Endless Blinking in the Sunlight, out of that. And one that I've never ever revisited and never recorded any of them, a big book of songs called Box of Tricks, which I never ever have gone back to. I don't know why. And then I wanted to re-record a song I like to play live, and it's called Birth of Vision. It was from Lucy and the Devil. That became a little EP. And it had, I recorded a version of Honey Apples on it. And it had tracks like Folding 1000 Cranes on it. And that at that time I had quite a bad experience live. So anyway, after that I released the Fool's Paradise song as a single. I had an acoustic version of The Last Great Summer on it, and hit a remix of Here Be Monsters. And then I stopped playing live for quite a while because I played in the Voodoo Lounge, somewhere I normally love to play. And it was I got a message on SoundCloud from a guy who was running a open mic, but for electronic artists or electronica artists. And because I was using quite a heavy drum machine, synth backing tracks, but with acoustic stuff over it, he asked me and I just went for it. But they didn't treat me so good when I was there. They didn't even have a mic or a way for me to plug anything in. And it was a faff, and I kind of got into a slight weird situation. So that destroyed my confidence. For some reason, I shouldn't have let it, but it did destroy my confidence for quite a while. So I didn't play gigs for a while. I just concentrated on recording, which that worked out all right because I did a fair bit of recording. So, and then I did the Dream Cage songs. I picked the best 12 songs from 40 songs in the Dream Cage book. And I ended up with quite a solid album. It was around that time I was really getting into a DAW home recording program, which really has worked out for me creatively over the years, called Ableton. So I was using Ableton and I laid the tracks down, and I was using addictive drums and different things like that. And the inbuilt instruments in Ableton plus live instruments. And I ended up with I was quite happy with the sound. I've got my brother singing on some of the tracks. Got my whole family singing at the end of Lost in Frost. And it's an interesting Dream Cage, because it's all about different stories and consciousness states. Some of it's very personal, but a lot of them are human stories. For example, Surgeon Square is about Burke and Hare, the famous body snatchers in Edinburgh, who sold at the time, surgeons and science was expanding knowledge of the human anatomy, and they were experimenting on corpses because they could dissect them. And there were people that would sell corpses to scientists so they could experiment on them and understand the human body. And two of those people famously were Burke and Hare in Edinburgh. So that Surgeon Square is about them. Building Up the Perfect Toy is about my mental health at the time. I was struggling with, I feel like I've got some OCD tendencies and some mild Tourette's elements in my personality, and I was coming to terms with some of those elements of myself, and that ended up being quite a personal song, but I was pleased with it. The Stalker is a story I wrote when I first moved to Cornwall in 2003. It's a piece of fiction, and I later tried to make that into an EP called The Songbirds at Dawn, which didn't quite work. Dream Language is probably my favourite piece on there. It's because it's a piece in 11/4, or is it 10/4? 10/4. Is it? Boom, 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 boom. Anyway, it feels like the central piece, and that's all about counting down and waking up from a dream. A Chess Master is about a Russian serial killer who would take souvenirs of his kills, and every time he'd kill somebody, he'd put another piece on a chessboard. But it's also a reference to religious authority over the years. Doublespeak is a song about politics. Lost in Frost is about embracing the now and joy. And Witness Blind Angels in the Night is a song I wrote for my grandmother that I never could make it work after I recorded it live ever again, and I tried to do an acoustic version. I kept messing it up every single time, so I decided never to play it again. I decided it was time to not play it anymore. So then we move into 2014. So my first album, 2007, my second album, Dreamcage 2013, so it's quite a jump. And then Seven Pointed Star, that's 2014. And that was around about the year I had some strange experiences which opened up my own consciousness spiritually. And that has... It was the, it's called, so the cover is the crystal swan that I made back to my grandma. It links back to my grandma. It's the very next release. My grandma died. Basically, I had a weird experience where I was on holiday. So that year so I was trying to factor in two different things. It's kind of in a humorous way. It sounds really good. So the first song was called Two Scorpios. And I had two different relationships that year with both two Scorpio women. It's kind of like that. And the last of those women, when I was on holiday in Normandy, no, Brittany. In Brittany, she sent me a text and dumped me on holiday. Not ideal, but I mean, it's years ago, and it doesn't matter now, but that factored into the song. But what was significant about that was on the way home, so we come out of, we sail out from St. Malo in the sun. We suddenly are enveloped in this white fog out of nowhere. And I was trying to sleep. I like to listen to music and sleep with my face in the sun, out on the deck in a ferry like that, listening to music. And when I closed my eyes, I could see all these like flowers and castles and stuff like that, like colours, like hypnagogic shapes and colours. And I was like, what the hell is all that? And anyway, when I got back to, when we docked and we finally got back to Northampton, finally got to my dad's house, my stepmom told me my grandma had died. So she probably died at that moment. So it was like almost like a spiritual experience where she was reaching out to me. So that's where the Crystal Swan is about her. Rebecca is an old solo song on there that I wrote years before, which I kept and I updated it there. Seven Pointed Star is a song about spirituality and alchemy. It's a very indicates very well my headspace at the time, where my thoughts were, and I was interested in different subjects, and I was really pushing the boat out in terms of my understanding of life and trying to keep an open mind. So let's move on. So then we've got my third album, Uranias Mirror, all the way in 2015. Uranias Mirror. So I wanted to say actually that, so the star map, so getting in the start, when I was doing the star map, I was getting into more into the art element, digital art, and editing pictures and stuff and making them into interesting pieces of art, digital art, for the sake of the music project, like the lyrics and everything like that. So all the star map stuff has quite whether or not I would call it good art, I don't know. It's just I've not really looked at it, but that's irrelevant really. It was just as part of the project, I was quite interested in doing that. So Uranias Mirror is also an art project. So every song has a lyric, has a piece of art with all the lyrics on them, which are interesting art that associates with has an interest and a correlation with the tracks. So Uranias Mirror is quite a out there album in terms of like what it's influenced by and things like that. It's influenced by Uranias Mirror. It means heaven's mirror, and I was interested in astrology and astronomy and things like that at the time. So the plates. So some of the artwork is named after Uranias Mirror, and they're pictures of all the star signs and constellations. It's a very, very beautiful Victorian pieces, and it opens with orange lights in the sky. My first time I had a UFO experience where I saw orange light going over like that, and I thought that is unusual. There's no like tail or light blinks of a airplane or anything, and then it suddenly got bigger, brighter, and then zapped, and then vanished. Got bigger and vanished, and I was like, well, what the hell is that? What does that? A plane? I don't know. And it turns out it's a phenomenon. Orange. I looked into it. It's the orange orb phenomenon or something like that. I bought a book on it, and I was interested in stuff that I don't really feel now, like new age concepts and stuff that I'm not interested in now. It's a very spiritual album. It's this album I was seeking. And you've got some older songs, 2 older songs there that's from when I first moved to, I wrote when I first moved to Cornwall, which finally found a home, and that is In the Valley Below, which was about a great day I spent with my granddad and dad in Bristol, and Like a Feather, a song I wrote for my friend who died. And then you've got some interesting sonic ideas. It doesn't always work, but I still go back to it from now and then because I think it was brave. It actually did pretty well because all of my album sales are all independent, so everything I sell goes straight to me. And of all the albums I've released, it's the one that's done the best. And this was released in 2015, in January 2015. Nope, February, to lie. And it had got a few tracks that were originally supposed to be, so in 2014 I also wrote a songbook called Gin Palace, and has 2 of those songs that were intended for that album on it, Gathering the Dust and Sad Blue Parade. So then the next one, 2016, is Endless Blinking in the Sunlight. And it was around about this sort of time that I started to go out for a lot of walks on my own. I was exploring places in Cornwall, Devon I've never been to before, and walking a lot on the coast path, and I was really enjoying a sense of freedom. So it reflects that sort of sense of freedom, really. Half of these songs are older songs from around the same time I recorded Dream Cage and from the Endless Blinking in the Sunlight book, but half of them are new songs. So Rise Again Light is almost like gospel in feel in a way, and that came out of nowhere. I was just messing around with this Here She Comes to Announce a New Day with the flicks, and it was about the dawn of a new day, like inside yourself spiritually, and And it's quite a sweet song, really. My Soul Was Made for Love is another simple, sweet song, and that has got quite. I was listening to bands like, was really into the band School of Seven Bells at the time. It's got a very dream pop feel to it, and it's in 6/4, and it's got all those layers of vocals at the end, which I was really happy with at the time. Because I'm free, it's all about embracing that freedom around the coast path, just simple as that. And that's in 7/4. Ship Graveyard's one of my favourites, and that was based on when I was younger, driving on one of the A roads into Portsmouth. At that time, you could look left. I can't remember the specific road because it's such a long time since I lived in Portsmouth. You're looking left, you have the ship graveyard where they break up all the old ships, all the submarines and stuff like that, all the old naval ships in the water, a ship's breakers yard. And it's a romantic image of an immortal ghost living amongst the ships, and the thoughts and dreams and feelings of that being. A Winter Rose I wrote for my mum. Good Night Sweet Prince, it was around the same time that my nephew was born, so I wrote him a song. And then there's some cool stuff on there, which it was around about this time where people were exposing politics and celebrities and stuff about what they've been doing. Is people like Epstein and things like that. And things like, not exactly that, but things like that were coming out a little bit on the fore of people's knowledge. And The Last Day Before the Dawn was written for my friend Steve. I just left in 2015 my job in the co-op. My friend Steve, we were interested in things like ufology, and I was getting into some occult stuff and esoteric ideas and spiritual ideas and things like that. So we would talk a lot about these things. And he died very suddenly of pancreatic cancer. So I wanted to write him a song. And the context of my life was that I left the co-op and I started a business with my mum. We bought this little shop, leasing this little shop in no place outside Luke called No Man's Land. And we were both running it together with the post office. I didn't know at the time all the things that were going on with the post office, which later bit us in the arse, basically. We had to close it down, but for a window of time as well, I was doing my Reiki. I got into my Reiki because my energy centers started opening up and I had to do something about it, so I got into Reiki. I was doing my Reiki level 2, and that put me on that. And I started playing open mic nights and stuff. So I was doing the occasional gig. So that was, got back into it again, but this time I kept it really simple, just guitar and acoustic. It used to be there was a great place in Liscar to play live music at the time called the Barley Sheaf, a great pub. And I was playing a few different places, just very simple acoustic sets. And then I released Gin Palace, and Gin Palaces were the old gin bars in London. So for some reason I was looking at old pictures of gin palaces, and I was inspired by Hogarth's, all the wood prints of the gin palaces in the state of London at the time, and it reminded me of our own societal state, and kind of worked with that idea. And that's got so I was moving into I don't know what you'd call it, more of a sort of I was experimenting in a different way. This time it wasn't so reliant on the guitar sound or writing the songs with the guitars, but more with loops and synths and stuff like that. So it's a totally different sounds. Half of these songs are the old Gin Palace songbook, and half of them are new. And that year was pretty fruitful for me creatively. I ended up doing 2 albums, and I also revamped a load of old stuff and made an EP collection. And There Is a Phoenix Rising in My Heart is about, there's awakening consciousness and stuff like that. And it ended up being I was really happy with that as a piece. It's got Hidden Palaces and Pole Star is a great opening track, I thought, quite a strong start. And then it's got a really old song, which I found, I should put on there, rewrote the lyrics to. It's an old song called It's Hard to Start. Put that on there. Barrowlands was a song I wrote about walking on the Bodmin Moor, just simply a song dedicated to that. It moved me forward to the next idea, which was more based on electronic concepts and ideas. The same year, I released Cherry Trees, which is a huge album, which is 15 tracks, but they're all quite long, and I couldn't even get them onto one disc. And that was really when I was working with loops and ideas, and some of the stuff on there was instrumentally really interesting as well, like Electronic Balloon. And also I was really struggling with breaking through, so my attunement to Reiki and stuff like that and I was struggling quite bad with anxiety with everything that's going on with the post office, and watching me and my mum's business go down the toilet and watching it die, basically. So I was really struggling that hard to keep it together. But I also started playing gigs, the occasional gig in a place called Waves Bar, and eventually in 2018 I had a gig there every Friday. So these all laid the foundations for some awesome live sets. Some of them I had to learn how to play, how I was going to play some of them acoustically. Some of them I can't do. But I played Sherbag Nights. One More Red Line to Slay is a song I really like. It's interesting chord ideas and textures in. And One More Red Line to Slay is just basically about holding on one more day with all the suffering you're going through on an internal level, just to keep yourself going on for one more day, just one more day, keep going. And the one more red line is one more day, just keep going one more day. Red line is a metaphor for the day, the sun. There's some synchronicity around the Cherry Trees, which was all to do with a day I spent with my friend, where a song Nobody Loved You was Manic Street Preachers was on, and we were driving down the A30 and there were all these cows randomly walking in the road, and then we ended up going for something to eat in Padstow in a place called Cherry Trees, and I thought, oh, Cherry Trees, bing. And there's the cherry theme throughout it: Cherry Wave Borealis, Cherry Trees, and lastly Cherry Angel. And Chalk Elephant is about my dad. The Chariot is another song I was pleased with. Bread for Crows is probably the one that's went the distance, because I figured out a way I like to play it live, which has worked out pretty well for me. And I also at the time released With an Angel, which was just an EP collection. It's a good way to introduce people to my former work and stuff, and I was revisiting some of these old tracks and trying to tart them up and remaster them and preserve them. Move on to Star Waltz. 2018, it was another part of this blue patch where I just relentlessly recording, and I ended up with 2 albums that year as well. And Star Waltz is an album of dedications and it's all about, it's another people-based thing, but then all the songs are about mostly people I know, and it's had some awesome people. You've got Daisy Dresses in there, which is about Gemma. Golden Supernova's about my mum. And I've got my friend Dana Novak at the time, who was involved in unmasking a scandal in the hospital she was working in as a nurse. She sadly passed away shortly after that, and I wrote this song, The Nurse Who Saw Too Much. I wrote a song for my brother called Shades of Man. A song for my friend John called The Last Republic. A song for my friend Zoe called Oak Heart. And I was really happy with that. And I ploughed straight through into another album called One More Rung on the Ladder to the Moon. And I released a single on it called Ladder to the Moon, which is I went for a walk up in Seaton Valley on one of the lesser known trails, and I wrote 2 songs out of nowhere. And that formed the basis of these songs, basically. Another track was In the Lead Mines, which is a 5/4 riff with some fantastical story. It's basically a story, but it's the title come from me busking in the lead mines car park in Paul's F. It's pretty far out. It's like it's the more avant-garde side of Star Waltz. And around that time, so it was exactly around that time I did my Reiki Masters, and we sold the lease on that shop. And it was a weight off my shoulders and my mum's shoulders, and I did a lot of live playing. I went into full-time music performer. I was doing 2 gigs every week, something like that. And one of my best ones was I played for a student party in the Marine Centre in Plymouth University, and I got that from just playing guitar on the beach. Somebody walked up to me with a business card and said, "Do you want a gig?" And that was pretty good. I got paid well out of that. I ran out of work, sadly. I was busking all the time, and I didn't have a job. And I finally run out. I turned up to play a gig where I was playing every Friday in this place called Waves Bar, and they told me they didn't want me to play today. And that was the end of it. No discussion, just take my guitar and turn around. And I didn't know what to do. I'd lost that place, and I didn't really know what I was going to do, so I just busked. I used to busk in Liscard all the time, and that was pretty fruitful, actually. That I did well there. I used to busk outside a shop that's not there anymore called M&Co. And the people there, some of the people in the coffee shops there were really nice to me. They let me change up all my loose cash, and I did well. And then eventually I had to get a proper job, which turned up to be not really a proper job, it was a pub job. Well, it was a different chapter of my life, and I was working on an album called Dream After Dream, which was my 9th album in this, based on the Orphic myth, the Orpheus myth, where he goes to find Eurydice in the underworld, and it's all about the shaman's journey of dying and being reborn. So it's quite a heavy concept, but it has some of my favourite songs. It's also I think it's the truest concept album I've done in a way. I'm still really pleased with how it turned out, and that ended up coming out in April 2019. And at that time, all momentum had stopped because my life changed. I got into hospitality full time, and I got really close to the family who I was working for, and the guy running the pub almost became like a father figure to me, and he put me through this hospitality apprenticeship and all this cellar training, pub management stuff, and then he got really ill. He got and it was, and again, all the COVID stuff happened, the lockdowns, but it's a transitional album, and it's all about that spiritual journey from which is the death and rebirth of the soul. It's quite heavy, but it's a true idea, and the film that goes with it, I think, works. But it fell flat. I didn't sell a single one. Didn't really sell any music since Uranias Mirror. I wasn't able to really make money out of selling music, so I kind of had to busk and play live, which also helped me become a better performer, and I incorporated some of the covers I like, but I play them my own way. And there are ups and downs about working in hospitality, but everything has changed since COVID, the lockdowns, the post-COVID era. Yeah, it's got some ones. It's got Descending into the Bowels of the Earth. I do play it. I've played that a couple of times. I can still get. It's got quite a high vocal. I can still do it. Uranias the Night I like to play. But it's more concept. It's not really something you'd play live. I play live that often. And then I had quite a turnaround. The very first lockdown, the weather was unexpectedly beautiful, and I was inspired by a trip I took in October to West Cornwall. And when I was there, I wrote one song called Wolf Rock. Basically, I had the lyrics in front of me, and I improvised it. And I took a second take of it, and I thought, well, that's it. And that second take is the audio of the video. It's on the EP, and the Selkie has done quite well for me. The On the Shore track is quite full of longing, and it's a concept idea again about a 6-song story of a shipwrecked sailor and his love for what he believes to be a mermaid, but it's actually a Selkie, and it's a magical being that can transform from a seal to a human being. And I still play On the Shore live, and sometimes Gwithian's Red River, and sometimes Turning Tide. So it has worked out pretty well, and I'm happy with that. And the artwork is it is the dolphins statue in Marazion overlooking St. Michael's Mount with a tide out on a cloudy day, reminiscent of the very trip I took which inspired it. And then we move to the Pilgrims Path. And the Pilgrims Path, which I hopefully will release in 2014, was inspired by, at the time I followed this hospitality journey, and I basically done everything you can do in it, from pot washing to the chefing, kitchen, waiting staff, in all the bar staff, bar management, cellar management, front of house management, rotors, all the stock ordering, all the line cleaning, everything that you can, all the cashing up, everything you can conceive of, live in, I've done all that. And I got the place where I was working, I found this fantastic person to be with in my life, this great relationship I was in. We met because we worked for these people, and we were talked into becoming living managers of somewhere which I already was familiar with. And we met some great people and had some great times, but I was being overstretched. I was working every 7 days a week, and every time I had to, and it wasn't my pub, but I was expected to cover any kind of absence. and paper over all the cracks for very little. I mean, I wasn't paying rent, so that was great. We had a place to live, but it was an unsound building. And I took a week off, and I thought, you know what, I don't want the stress in my life. It wasn't working out the way I hoped it might have done, but I'd learned a lot from the experience, and there's no hard feelings for me from anybody. But I've decided I'd had enough, and I went on this journey up north from Cornwall. Stopped off at the Malverns, went to Worcester, went to Northamptonshire, and then back all the way down through the Cotswolds, Wiltshire, and back home. And everywhere I went, it inspired me to. I wanted to make a song based on everywhere I went, and it was inspired by. And the Pilgrims Path was. It originally was that everybody is a pilgrim and a pilgrimage from life to the spirit world, or life from life to death. We're all pilgrims on a journey. We're all on a different journey, a different spiritual journey. And then I thought, well, me and my partner, we've been on a journey, and I've been on a journey. And my journey was to go. I hadn't been back to Northamptonshire for 10 years, so that was a journey for me, a pilgrimage back. But also me and my partner, we've been on a journey together, and that's been a kind of like a pilgrimage to get where we are right now. And so it factors in things like that. Every song has a special place for me, especially as I'm building it up now, and the way that some of the songs come about, it truly frames some of the things in my life, but also the love in me, and my own journey. And I hope that period of time that I'm on, from 2005 now to 2024, I hope that it's been one of growth, understanding, and creative understanding, and that these songs are right now, 10, 20, 30 years, I'll still be proud of them, and I still want to play them live if I still can. And I've made some kind of impression on myself. I've learned from my own journey, and that somebody else will enjoy this music that I can share with them, and that there's something in here for somebody else to enjoy, that there's something that I can share with somebody else creatively that they can resonate with. And that's my journey. 21 years in Cornwall. It's been beautiful. Anyway, thanks for joining me in this weird time and place. It's 22nd of October 2024, but by the time this gets released, and I'll chop this up and edit it so it's hopefully halfway decent, it'll be some other time, some other place. Adios.